Being the least experienced person in the room is never a good reason to shrink or take up less space when you speak. In fact, it's the exact opposite. When you're surrounded by leaders who have more experience than you, that's when it's most important to speak to them as if you are a peer. You want to show them that you know how to speak their language and that you're unafraid to lead, even in a big room full of big leaders. If you want to have the confidence to do that, keep listening, because today we are learning how. Welcome to the Art of Speaking Up, a podcast that helps professional women access the limitless potential that lies within them. I'm your host, Jessica Guzik, and my mission is to help you find that spark inside you that has the power to transform your career in ways you may not have thought possible. I'm so excited that you're here. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jess. I'm a New York Times featured podcast host, and I'm the creator of the Art of Speaking Up podcast. I'm a prior corporate executive myself and a current full-time podcaster and coach for women who work in the corporate and 9-to-5 world. And today's episode is on a topic that comes up so often in my coaching, in my programs, and on the podcast, and that is the topic of executive communication. I'm going to help you get good at executive communication. And by the way, if you hear the phrase executive communication and it sounds a bit intimidating and it sounds like something that might be difficult for you to get good at, I want to assure you that this can be simple. You just have to have the right tools, which I'm going to help you with today. And I also want to encourage you to put in the effort to get good at executive communication because it has so many positive benefits for you professionally. And by the way, let me quickly define what executive communication is. It literally just means that your communication, both written and verbal, is so crisp and compelling that even someone who is a very experienced, very senior executive would be really impressed by you and the way you speak and the way that you share information. Now, it's worth it to dive deep and to build this skill because when you get good at this, it gives you so much internal confidence. You feel so strong inside when you have that certainty that the way that you're speaking is the best of the best. This was something that gave me such an enormous boost of confidence in my corporate career. I loved the feeling of going into a meeting with a high-up executive. Sometimes I would be sharing my work with a chief strategy officer or a chief finance officer or someone really high up in the organization. But I loved the feeling of going into those meetings and conversations knowing that my stuff was good, knowing that I had the ability to share the information in a way that was going to land really powerfully with that stakeholder or with that executive. It made me feel like so strong and so on fire inside. And I want you to have that feeling too. That is why I focus on executive communication so much in the podcast and so much in my signature program, the Art of Speaking Up Academy. And that is why we're diving into it today. So today, I'm going to teach you one of the most important foundational skills of executive communication. And the skill that you're going to learn is how to transition from speaking as a sharer to speaking as a leader. So when I use the word sharer, what I mean is how to transition from someone who is sharing information. So you're there as a sharer. This is kind of a funny word, but we're going to be using it a lot. Versus speaking as a leader. You're not just there to share information, you're there to lead your audience to a feeling and a business outcome. Now, the best way for me to teach you this in today's episode is through an analogy. You know I love analogies, so that's what we're going to use to learn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by explaining the analogy, and then I'm going to walk you through how to take the key learnings from this analogy and apply them to your communication so that you can be way more powerful. By the way, if my voice sounds a little bit funny today, I'm getting over a cold, and I'm at that phase of the cold where I feel totally fine and like I feel great and I'm back to normal, but my voice still sounds like 22% funny. So if you can hear that, that's what that is. But let's get into the analogy. So this is an analogy to help you understand the difference between speaking as a sharer versus speaking as a leader. So here's the analogy. I want you to imagine that you are pregnant. Now, for some of you, this might actually be true. For some of you, this might be something you've experienced. But I want you to just imagine that you're pregnant and that you're going to go to the doctor to have some routine tests and blood work taken just to make sure that the pregnancy is moving along smoothly. Now, before I go deeper into this analogy, I just want to share a caveat. I'm not a doctor. I know nothing about this topic. So I'm going to make up some facts about blood work and pregnancy for purposes of this analogy. These are made up facts. This is not real. This is totally fake. So they won't really make sense, but that's not the point of the analogy. It's not going to matter. So anyway, okay. So you go to the doctor, and let's just say that as part of the tests that you're getting, your doctor is going to measure your heart rate, your baby's heart rate, and your iron levels and your baby's iron levels. Again, this is not based in reality. This is just a made-up example. So here's what I want you to imagine. You go to the doctor's office, the doctor does the tests, and then they take your test results and they project them up on a screen for you to see. And the doctor walks you through the information on the screen. So let's call this doctor Dr. Allen. Dr. Allen says, okay, your heart rate is 65, your baby's heart rate is 70, your iron levels are 30%, and your baby's iron levels are 25%. Thank you so much for coming to this appointment. I now have to see my next patient, so I'm going to walk you out to the waiting room and have a great rest of your day. Okay, so if you were in this situation with this doctor, what would you be thinking? If it was me, I'd be thinking like, WTF, like what just happened there? You just showed me all of these results. You didn't explain anything about what they mean for my health and for the health of my baby. You just shooed me out of the doctor's office, and I didn't even get what I came for. I mean, like, yes, you did the tests you said you would do, and you shared the results just like you said you would share the results. But that's actually not enough for me to get what I need out of this appointment. So that's what I'd be thinking if that happened to me. Now, what I also want you to think about is what thoughts would you have about your doctor after that appointment and how that appointment went? Here are some thoughts that I would probably have. I'd probably have thoughts like, this is a bad doctor. What a terrible way to help a patient. Am I expected to understand this and figure this out on my own? So this appointment and this way of interacting with the doctor would leave me feeling really negatively about this doctor and just in general experiencing a lot of distrust when it comes to this doctor. Okay, so we're going to go deeper into this analogy. I want you to imagine you're so mad about how this appointment went with Dr. Allen that you're like, you know what? Screw Dr. Allen. I'm getting a new doctor. I don't like how this appointment went. And you get a new doctor and you go to see Dr. Bob. And you go to Dr. Bob and he does the same tests. But when he walks you through the tests, he actually explains to you what everything means. So he says, your heart rate is 65. Baby's heart rate is 70. These are both within a healthy range. Everything looks good. Nothing to do there except wait to look at heart rate again when we do our next checkup 3 months from now. Your iron levels are 30%. Your baby's iron levels are 25%. Now, both of those are in the healthy range, but they're at the lower end of the healthy range. So while this isn't a huge red flag, I do want to prescribe you just a couple of supplements so that your iron levels and baby's iron levels can get to the higher level of that range. Okay, so that was Dr. Bob. Now, I would imagine that you would leave the appointment with Dr. Bob feeling much better about how the appointment went, about how your pregnancy is going. And you would also feel better about Dr. Bob's competence as a doctor and how much that you can trust him. So this analogy is the perfect way to understand the difference between speaking as an information sharer versus speaking as a leader. So Dr. Allen was speaking as an information sharer. All he did in your appointment was he shared the information and he didn't go any step beyond that. He shared the bare bones, minimum information, and then he kicked you out of his office. Dr. Bob, on the other hand, was speaking as a leader because not only did he share the information, but he took on the role of the leader in that dynamic, in that he put the responsibility on his shoulders to lead you through the meaning and significance and importance of the information. He didn't expect you to go home and Google it and figure it out yourself. Dr. Bob expected himself to take on that role. So if you think about Dr. Allen versus Dr. Bob, Dr. Bob sees himself in a higher regard. He has more respect for who he is as a doctor. He takes himself more seriously. He has more pride in what he's doing. And because of that, when he shares the information with you, he would never just share the data and not expand on it, but he's really bringing that pride and that leadership into the room and into the interaction with you. And he's taking full responsibility of walking you through the meaning of the information. And when Dr. Bob does that, and Dr. Bob goes beyond just sharing the information and he leads you through the information and he takes charge of that interaction with you and he makes it his responsibility to make sure you understand it. Not only is it easier for you to take in and understand the information, but perhaps more importantly, you are going to experience way more trust in Dr. Bob. And you are going to be way more confident in his skills and competence as a doctor because of the way that he walked you through the information. Now, this applies exactly, identically in the corporate world. So just like Dr. Allen was a sharer of information and Dr. Bob was a leader and he led you through the meaning of the information, when you are speaking in corporate and when we are speaking in a corporate setting, we can speak as a sharer like Dr. Allen, or we can speak as a leader like Dr. Bob. When we're speaking as a sharer, we are sharing the facts and information with our audience. Now, of course, we want to share the facts and information with our audience 100%. For sure, we want to be doing that. However, we don't want to stop there. We want to go one step beyond being a sharer, and we want to transition to being a leader. This is because when we speak as a leader and we go one level beyond just sharing the information, and we lead our audience through the meaning, the interpretation, the significance, the implications of the information, not only will they be able to process it and digest it more easily, but more importantly, our audience is going to have a very different perception of us and our competence. Just like we see Dr. Bob as a better doctor because of the way he communicated the information, because he went from sharing to leading. Similarly, when you go from sharing to leading, your audience is also going to experience you as more competent and they're going to trust you more. Now, this is super important because when you're speaking with executives, one of the most powerful outcomes that you can create for your professional trajectory is that they trust you, is that they have a feeling that they could put something difficult in your hands and you have the leadership and competence to guide them through it. It's the same feeling that you want to have with the doctor that you're seeing when you're pregnant, right? Like you want to know that you can trust this doctor. Like you want to know that they get it and that they're going to guide you through everything you need to know. That's exactly the impression that you want to make on your executive audience when you are communicating. So now that I've talked a little bit about the difference between sharing information versus leading and speaking as a sharer versus speaking as a leader, I want to go even deeper into it so that you can understand it in depth. And I also want to give you examples of how to apply it. So we're going to take a quick break. And then when I come back from the break, which the break is more of me, so I'm not really coming back, but when the episode resumes, I'm going to talk to you more about how to transition from sharer to leader so that you can be impressive and build trust when you speak. Hey, Jess, do you have a pair of sunglasses I can borrow? The sun is so bright that it's hurting my eyes. Oh, it's not the sun that's super bright. What do you mean it's not the sun? It's me. I'm glowing. That's why it's hurting your eyes. Why are you glowing? Well, I just took a free online course and it made me feel so confident I started to glow. What was it called? It's called CEO Vibes. What's it about? It's all about how you don't need to be perfect or have all the answers to bring that confident CEO energy into the room. It made me realize that I totally already have everything it takes to impress people. And then I started glowing. What? Where can I get this course? It lives inside the free resource library, which you can access at jessguzikcoaching.com/free resources or by clicking the link in the show notes. Hey, did you still need those sunglasses? I've got a pair right here. Nah, I don't want to wear them because I want to take the free course and see if it makes me glow too. I'll catch you later. Bye. Okay, so I'm hoping that by this point, you're in a headspace where you're like, oh my gosh, I want to transition from sharer to leader. I don't want to be like the doctor who just shares the data with my patient and doesn't explain anything. I want to be the doctor who powerfully leads them through it and who inspires that trust in them. And if you're thinking that, then the second half of this episode is for you. So the first thing that I want to get at is the core difference between speaking as a sharer versus speaking as a leader. So when we are sharing information with our audience, the way that I want you to think about it is just like the data that the doctors collected through the blood work and the testing, just like that data and those results don't really have any meaning and they don't make sense to you until the doctor explains what the meaning is. I want you to think about your work and the information that you're sharing as being the same. It's almost like gibberish to your audience. It doesn't make sense to them. They don't know what it is. You have to go one step beyond just sharing what it is, and you have to tell them what it means. You have to tell them the significance of it. You have to tell them what they should think about it. Just like Dr. Bob told his pregnant patient the significance of the heart rate and the iron levels. So your information is just like those medical test results, and it's up to you to step into those Dr. Bob leadership shoes and be like, okay, how can I show up as a leader in this interaction and really show my audience what the true meaning of this is? So the way that you can think about this is when you're a sharer, you're sharing the raw information. When you're a leader, you are guiding your audience through the significance and meaning and implications of the information. Now, when you're speaking with executives, that is what they care about most. What executives care about is the bigger picture. The question that they have in their minds is, what is this doing for the business? How is this going to impact the business? What does this mean on a higher level? Just like when you go to the doctor and get your tests, you're not thinking, what is my heart rate? What is my iron level? You're thinking, what does this mean? What does this test result mean for my health and the health of my baby and my pregnancy? So similarly, your audience in a way isn't interested in the actual information you're sharing. They're interested in the bigger why and the bigger implications behind that information. And when you transition from sharer to leader and you talk about that bigger why, that's when they can begin to see you at more of an executive level because you're showing them that you understand the significance. What you're showing them is not only are you cranking out deliverables, but you are also thinking at a high level about how those deliverables map into the goals of the organization. And when executives spot someone who is both a worker bee and who understands the bigger picture and can speak to it powerfully like a leader, they are going to want to keep that person around for a long time. And when executives want to keep you around, that is when things get really good for you in your career. So it is so important to do this, not just so you can be effective like in that meeting that's on your calendar this afternoon, but so that you can get that promotion that you want in 12 months instead of 36 months because your work has been so impressive to the leaders around you that they want to make sure that you're happy and that you're growing in the organization. And they also want to put you on the biggest, most important things. Before I get deeper into examples to help you transition from sharer to leader, I want to talk about the most important struggle point and question that I see come up with my clients when it comes to this idea. This is something that comes up quite a lot when I'm supporting my clients in the Art of Speaking Up Academy. And this is probably something that you relate to. And it's this idea of like, my audience, my executive audience, they are smarter than me. They know more than me. They have more experience than me. Like they are the leader in the room. How am I supposed to be the leader and step up and really like guide them through this information when they're smarter and they have more insight into what it means and they have more knowledge than me because they're more experienced and they've been at the organization longer? It can almost feel scary to step into that leader role, and it can make you think like, I don't have anything to actually offer here because I'm not as smart and experienced as my executive audience. So maybe I should speak to them just like a sharer. Maybe I should just share the raw information and let them use their smarts and their experience and their genius to understand the implications of it, rather than me trying to step into an intellectual role that is better suited to them. And I think that this line of thinking makes sense because, yeah, like executives who are in the room with you do have more experience than you. So like that is a true fact. But I want to share a perspective with you that I hope will turn that thought on its head and help you see that when you're in the room with executives, it does not matter if they have more years of experience than you. It does not matter if they know more about the organization than you. It does not matter if you feel like they're smarter than you. None of those things should impact how you show up in the room. Here's why I believe that's true. We're going to go back to the doctor analogy. I want you to imagine that you are pregnant and you go to Dr. Allen. But in this analogy, I want you to imagine that you are an OBGYN. You're a doctor. You know all about pregnancy. You know all about what the test results mean. You have the same knowledge as your doctor. And you go to your appointment with Dr. Allen, and Dr. Allen runs the tests, and he shares the information with you, and he doesn't tell you what it means, and he shoos you out of the office to get to his next patient. Now, if you're an OBGYN, you don't have the same problem you had in the earlier analogy where you're like, I don't know what these test results mean, and I need a doctor who can explain this to me. You don't have that same predicament because you can interpret the test results because you are a doctor. So my question to you is, would you still stay with Dr. Allen, or would you rather be treated by Dr. Bob, who is going to not only share the results, but walk you through what the results mean? So I want to tell you my thinking on this because this is probably like the most important thing I'm sharing on this episode. Just this is deeply important. If I'm pregnant and I know everything about this area of medicine, I still would rather see Dr. Bob as my doctor. Because when Dr. Bob shows me the test results and tells me what they mean and goes beyond just like sharing the raw data with me, I know I can trust him because one, he's showing me that it's important for him to take the lead and not put that burden on me. And number two, I trust him because if he walks me through the meaning of the results, I know he's competent. If Dr. Allen doesn't walk me through the test results, I have no way of knowing how competent Dr. Allen is. I don't know the extent of his knowledge because he's not showing me. What I do know, what he is showing me is the extent of his leadership, which is that he is not willing to step up and do it. So when it comes to Dr. Allen, I have a question mark about his ability to interpret the results. I don't know if he can interpret the results because he didn't show me. I don't have a question mark, though, about Dr. Allen's leadership. I know with full certainty that Dr. Allen has poor leadership because he didn't take on any leadership in the interaction. Whereas with Dr. Bob, I know that Dr. Bob is competent. He showed me because he walked me through the test results. And I know that Dr. Bob will step up as a leader because that's what I saw him do. So you can see from this example that it doesn't matter how much the patient knows and how much the patient is an expert. The patient still wants the doctor to show up as an expert, to show up as a leader, so the patient can feel confident in the doctor's abilities. Same exact thing for you in corporate. Your audience is equivalent to the patient. It doesn't matter how much they know, how much more experienced they are than you, how much smarter you think they are than you. When they show up in your room and in your meeting, they have two questions. Question one, is she competent? Question two, is she capable of stepping up as a leader? The only way that you can answer those questions is by sharing with them the insights and the information that they quote unquote already are smart enough to know. Because just because they know it, what they don't know is you. They don't know if you know it. This is why it is so critical to speak to your audience as if you are the CEO, as if you are the highest person in the hierarchy in the room. That is what it means to go from sharer to leader. You're not discounting yourself and how you show up and how you share the information just because your audience is technically higher up on the hierarchy than you. You see yourself as a professional who is there to take the lead, right? Like it would be really weird if Dr. Allen was like, well, you're a doctor, so like I'm not going to really walk you through these results. Like you know what they mean and I have to get to my next appointment. You would have no respect for Dr. Allen. We want Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob takes himself so seriously as a doctor and a leader that he could have the world's most like renowned OBGYN as his patient, and he would still show up as the leader in that situation. He wouldn't shrink his leadership and say, oh, you know so much, like what can I possibly help you with? No, Dr. Bob is like, I'm Dr. Mother effing Bob. Here's your test results. Here's what they mean. That's the energy that you have to have with executives. You should not shrink based on their bigness. They need to see your bigness and see you taking up space and see you showing up as a leader so that they can trust you, so that they know what you're capable of. Because when you're sharing your project with them, it's not about that one project. It's about what project they're going to give you in 12 months and how that project is going to speed up your path to promotion. So you want to be bigger than them always in the way that you share the information. And that is at the core of executive communication. I mean, yes, there are other components to executive communication, like you want things to be clear, you want to use structure. Like there are these other little pieces that I talk about on other episodes and I'll continue to talk about. But at the heart of executive communication is that bigness and is that ability to move from just sharing to actually leading. And the way that you're going to get there, because I want you to do this in your next meeting, I want you to take this podcast episode and I want you to use it to get better and braver and bigger in the way that you speak. So the way that you're going to do this is I want you to think about your audience as a patient going to the doctor, and everything that you're sharing with them is a line item in a test result, and they have no idea what it means. So I want you to imagine your audience is thinking, what the heck does this marketing plan mean? What the heck does this reorg mean? What the heck does this legal agreement mean? What the heck does her product design mean? Like whatever you're showing them on the slide, whatever you're speaking about, just imagine they're thinking, what the heck does it mean? And then I want you to think about, okay, when I share this with them, I can share it as Dr. Allen, or I can share it as Dr. Bob, where I really take on that leadership role of guiding them through the significance and the meaning. So you're really asking yourself, WWDBD, what would Dr. Bob do in this situation? So if you're sharing a marketing plan, maybe that marketing plan means the company has a chance to bounce back and hit the annual revenue target, even though they've been behind on their target so far. Maybe the reorg plan that you're sharing means that your company is going to get that next product launched faster. Maybe the legal agreement that you're sharing means that if something unexpected happens in your industry, your company will be protected. Maybe the product design that you're sharing means that you're finally going to give customers the feature that they've been wanting. And because of that, your company can expect an increase in customer retention. So you want to go beyond just sharing the information, and you want to be that leader and lead your audience through why the information is important, not only so that that's easier for them to understand and so that they don't have to do that thinking on their own, but more importantly, so that they know the extent of your capabilities. We never want to assume that our audience knows what we are able to do behind the scenes. We have to show them what we're able to do by speaking to them in a way that helps them see the full extent of our leadership capabilities. And that is how you get ahead in corporate. That is how you build your reputation. When you speak as a leader and not as a sharer, people start to think of you as smarter, sharper, more capable, more effective. And they start to think of you as someone who's driving really important work and really big impact within the company. And there is almost nothing better that you can do for yourself or your professional reputation than learning to speak to your audience as a leader versus a sharer. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I had so much fun recording this. I'm kind of like out of breath and all excited from this. If you want to get really good at making this transition from sharer to leader, I teach this in depth in the Art of Speaking Up Academy, and I want to invite you to join the waitlist for that program. It's my signature program where I help you build confidence and learn to speak like a leader. And when you join the waitlist, not only will you be first to find out when the next cohort opens, but you're also going to qualify for bonuses that I only offer to those on the waitlist. You can find the waitlist by clicking the link in the show notes or going to jessguzikcoaching.com/academy. Like I was saying in the beginning of this episode, when you do the work to get good at executive communication, it changes your career trajectory permanently and for the better. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing week. And I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.